Cafecito break. Cafecito. Cafecito.
Hola, hola. This is Rosangel Perez with a special, very special gathering. Join us by the internet hearth as we have a soulful connection conversation this evening with Michael DiMartino of Earth Summit and Professor Tratner. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Michael DiMartino, it's great to have you back. And joining us this evening for the first time is Professor Alan Tratner. Welcome to Cafecito Break. How are you this evening, gentlemen?
Aloha from the Pacific in Hawaii, in Lahaina, where climate-driven disasters, everybody know, happened a year ago, incineration of the city. But we're all ready to talk.
Great, and I'm glad to be here again. This is our second time with you, and I always like to bring conscious content to people like yourself who are doing amazing independent media to bring these stories and this information forward. I'm in the Rocky Mountains, and it's windy and actually very cool and raining, but and you're in New York City, so we have a trifecta going here.
Quite amazing energy points. Right before we started this conversation, family, I was sharing with Professor Tratner that the closest I've been to Lahaina is Kauai. And growing up and living in New York City, there's such a masculine energy here, right? And when I experienced the energy in Kauai, I was able to actually have some downtime. I did go there for work, but I was able to experience some of the sites that the locals showed us and hear some of the lores and stories and traditions, and also feel into the energy of the island. And it was very mysterious. It felt very feminine. It felt like I was only beginning to learn more about the mysteries of this universe. And it left quite an impression on me. It saddens me to hear the reminder, Professor, that we're a year into the tragic events of Lahaina. And that's something in the United States that some people still report on, but it doesn't really get covered. I'm wondering if please, if you could introduce yourself to our audience and if you could share some more.
Sure. Rose Angel, I've learned that I should be calling you that, and I'm delighted to do so. So I'm Professor Alan Tratner. I was involved, and I'm very rightly so proud of this, in the founding of the original Earth Day in 1970. And at that same time, we created this global impact pioneering incubator called Green to Gold for inventing a green future and a sustainable green economy. And that's what we're all about. We have 100,000 members that are inventor, entrepreneurs, innovators, small businesses, scientists, researchers, engineers. But we also do something very novel. We're a 501c3 nonprofit, and we actually incubate nonprofits, more than 300 to date, that are socially and environmentally responsible. And the reason we were on Maui and in Lahaina, there are multiple reasons, but we wanted to create a global center here for sustainability, a transition to sustainability, the green economy that's inclusive, that embraces indigenous and native cultures and wisdom, but all the new technology that we have developed in our Green to Gold incubator worldwide, and the methodologies and systems. In fact, I met Michael because we actually helped him create his for-profit and his nonprofit foundation, and he's been under our fiscal umbrella all this time. And he was kind of impacted by the COVID situation, of course, in his attempt to create an Earthstock festival, which was the original concept. And now we're producing this global, driven by a lot of our media, Regen Media and everything, this wonderful summit coming up across the continents of the planet for Earthstock Summit. But we got caught up in we were just wind damaged, but not fire damaged. Thank you. And we basically got caught up in the terrible disaster. Climate driven, the very thing we were here to do is to mitigate and prevent and be resilient and give them 100% food security and renewable energy and sustainability and clean up their water and fix the problems. But it happened to be that glance of a climate-driven hurricane and the fire, the ferocious winds like a torch burned that whole city to it. The next morning was the saddest thing I've ever seen in my life. It looked like Lahaina was in fact Nagasaki or Hiroshima. It was all black and white and smoke and smoldering, and everything was destroyed, and right down to the ocean and into the boats of the ocean, as everybody saw around the world. We didn't see it happen as the rest of the world was watching on the news. We were in it and had no power and no communications and no, phones weren't working, nothing. We had no water, no food, and no energy, and it was pretty interesting to be in the disaster centers at that time. And I've been through two California earthquakes, including the big Northridge one that completely split open my home and destroyed it, but we had insurance and rebuilt it. But nothing I've never seen or experienced. And I've been to Sudan, where they wanted us to do a green to gold incubator. That's a civil war in Africa. And that was sad, but nothing like what happened here. The best thing I can say to finish that up, and I know you asked me earlier about the aftermath. This is the 1 year anniversary of that terrible disaster, loss of 102 people and tens of thousands of buildings, thousands of vehicles, schools, homes, just horrible stuff. The recovery's been bad. But the best analogy I told the media about is that, everybody I think in the world has seen Judy Garland in The Wizard of Oz. You remember at the beginning, it's black and white when they're on the farm. And then all of a sudden you get to The Wizard of Oz, the nation, the place, and it's all beautiful color. Well, we had the opposite. We had the beauty of paradise and the color and the birds singing and everything else. And as you moved toward Lahaina, it turned into this black and white and gray situation that was sad. And the smell and the smoke was horrible, horrific. And that's the best analogy I've been able to make. It's just like going from from color into black and white. And it was terrible for a long time. And we haven't recovered. The economy has been decimated. The people have a great spirit, as you have learned, but it was just tragic. And what we're doing with the Earthstock Summit is part of that thing I mentioned to you earlier when we were talking about Build Back Green that came out of Michael and I created this event that was only a few weeks after the Lahaina disaster about solutions for this and people donating and giving gifts and everything. And by the way, Michael, the banyan tree that you brought, that individual that brought thousands of gallons of this great organic tea-based fertilizer to try to revive this couple hundred year old famous tree in Lahaina that was burned, and they've revived it, starting to actually grow new branches and everything. It's a great symbol for us this time.
It's regeneration.
And it was pretty terrific. But then what happened, it took on its own life, Build Back Green, because Acapulco in Mexico got hit by that historically unknown hurricane that caused all that destruction. And it's happening everywhere, these kinds of climate-driven disasters. And we're trying to be the solutionaries, as Michael calls them, to bring the actual true solutions, technological, methodological, all that to these situations. We have the resources. It's not that we don't know how to repair this, fix it, make situations sustainable, resilient, and cause green economies for good green jobs everywhere, local green economies. It's just that the politics and the way people make decisions and the investments in the fossil fuel industry and all that kind of stuff, the vested interests have been in the way. And I think that's all changing. People are awakening to that.
And what's interesting, I would say, as horrific as it was, making lemonade out of lemons, or a symbolic phoenix rising or regenerating from the ashes. I actually live in Northern California. We suffered the Paradise Fire. And also right now they have the 500,000 acre park fire. So again, I want to thank you for having us on the show tonight. We're going to touch on a lot of points in the next hour, and I'm actually happy to be here as a solutionary and with a strategic alliance with Alan Tratner and Green to Gold, because typically over the last 10 months, I've been wearing a producer hat. And in that, putting together the Earthstock Eco-Spiritual Summit, which is August 19th to 25th. in Crestone, Colorado, but yet we have broadcast hubs that'll be chiming in all around the world. We have every morning from 9 a.m. to 11, Shannon MacArthur with Sparkling Conversations. She's with Humanity Rising. 11 to 12, Luciana Calibri, broadcasting from Colombia, bringing in regenerative solutionaries and the voices of traditional people from all across Latin America. And then from 12 to 1 every day with Cara Stonehouse from the Hague Institute and the Holo Movement, who will be bringing in presenters from Europe. And in the evening, we'll be bringing in presenters from Asia and Africa. And the idea is, I've been wearing this, producer hat, kind of about to launch over 80 presenters over 7 days at 10 venues in Colorado. So all of them are solutionaries in the sense of, and we're going to kind of dig deeper into what Alan's work has been, which has really been fascinating. And it's really been an honor to work with him, to have his mentorship, but also to be midwifing this strategic alliance of Regeneration Global, realizing that it's time that we all come together in radical collaboration and we put our superpowers together, because whether it's climate change, whether it's stuff of the spiritual condition of humanity, or many different things, that we're looking at full spectrum regenerative solutions. So that's based on the Wheel of Co-Creation by Barbara Marx Hubbard. And the idea is that, society is different spokes of a wheel that make society. So we have arts and culture, spirituality, we have health and wellness. We also have things like infrastructure, technology, renewable technology, media, things like economics and governance. And unless all these pieces can start working together, especially after the whole, 4-year kind of global reset and the pandemic, as challenging as it was and so much loss with, people have suffered, we also learned that, and that was dealing with human health, that we have to do things differently right now. We have to regenerate the human condition, again, spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally, but also that extends to, like Alan was saying, what's happening simultaneous with climate change and with the planet. And, all these elements are working together right now, hopefully to help humanity wake up to our potential of what we can do, again, as solutionaries, as innovators. And that's going to take all of us, no matter what we do, if you're, just a mother or father and living a domestic household life, or you're an advocate or a water protector, or you're a traditional indigenous elder, or you work with technology, you're a scientist, or you're a media person, this is really a call to action for us all to unify and start to not compete, but radically collaborate to bring these solutions, and not as some sort of counter cultural concept of, peace and love and the environment, but really taking on the reality of the survival of humanity into the next 7 generations. So, the summit is a really big focus on that. But what's been amazing, it's aligning at the same time as this, 8 years of work with Professor Tratner, the founding of Earthstock Foundation, and then planning a big event in 2020. And then the COVID mandates came and we had to not do the event. But we did do a beta event since Alan is one of the co-founders of Earth Day. We did an Earth Day Expo in Thousand Oaks, California, with indigenous musicians and dancers, and we broadcast into the VR and brought a lot of amazing people together. But nonetheless, we're moving together. And I want to open it up for more discourse. But the exciting thing now is the event, earthstocksummit.com. So many amazing presenters, artists, musicians, indigenous wisdom keepers, people who work with technology, natural building, water remediation, soil remediation, regenerative agriculture, green technology, solar, wind. All of us coming together for a 7-day deep drop, but not as a festival or just ear tickling, but how do we weave together more effectively to bring these solutions forward? And that's really something that Professor Tratner in his 50 some odd years and the co-founding of Earthstock and Green to Gold, with his, what we call his golden Rolodex, we're bringing all of these people together to actually midwife this alliance for solutions, not just through the event, but really the event as kind of a initiation point for the next stage of collaboration.
Rose Angel, your mic is not working.
Oh, thank you. I'm double muted just because sometimes we have such weird like audio hiccups. Thank you for that. And I don't know, Alan, you're frozen. Do you see that too, Michael?
I see myself as functioning, living, breathing, and existing. I'm not,
Yes.
I'm not frozen.
This is part of the, like, have you noticed that Wi-Fi connections, internet connections have been extremely spotty? Even I'm speaking in slow motion, trying not to, but everyone bear with us. I'm in New York. Professor Alan Tratner is in Lahaina, Hawaii. And Michael is in Colorado.
Rocky Mountain High.
Well, this is the interesting thing, and I want to hear from you too, because we want to have a conversation and we want to inspire thought. And I as I got to know the work that you're doing in New York, I was really inspired. And actually, our last conversation went down kind of a very deep rabbit hole of social change, working in our communities, what we can do to elevate the discourse, and you're doing incredible work. But I will say, whether we're working in our own home with our family and our children, or in our neighborhood, or in our watershed, our bioregion, or nationally or globally, right now, there really is no one that's being unaffected. And I will say, the technology can be a great tool, but it's also, like Alan was saying during the fire, I mean, he had to walk and stand in line just to use Starlink so he could make, a phone call. So these are technologies that we take for granted. But I have noticed recently a lot of glitches with technology, especially with the introduction of AI. And I think a lot of it, because I used to be an investigative journalist, has to do with there's been an extreme amount of fluctuation in the Schumann frequency, which is the Earth's magnetic field, in the ionosphere, and also solar flares that have been happening right now that affect the bioelectromagnetic field of the planet. And it's all part of this transformation that's happening. Like, again, that's why we go to regeneration. Things that we've done in the past may not work in the future. So how do we take what doesn't work in the past, make it compost for the moment to cultivate and germinate a better future? And again, I want to acknowledge Professor Troutner and literally the over 100 individuals and organizations, not only involved in Earthstock, but even beyond the summit that Alan's been working with, that are coming together. I say putting our superpowers together, because it will take that kind of, Avengers superhero cliffhanging moment in history right now for us to come back from, some very serious challenges, whether personal or with health or with the environment. So, I appreciate these opportunities to speak, because it is kind of a wake-up call and a call to action. We're not here just to add more information and saturate you with more stuff, but we're here to kind of activate you to be like, oh yeah, there's things I can do. My healthcare products, my cosmetics, my home cleaning products, my yard products. We know insecticides, pesticides, herbicides. Of course, Monsanto and glyphosate has been notoriously destructive to lots of people. And then we start to look at chemical and petroleum-based agriculture. And then, Alan can speak on this. I'll pass him the feather here to speak. But, all of these ways we've done things are only accelerating climate change and the decline in health and wellness of human beings and our communities and our environment. And really importantly, our children. And of course, Alan's with his son right now. So I want to open it up and stop babbling. I'm obviously very passionate, but I hope we can cover some ground. And I'm just really happy to be here tonight with you and your show and Professor Troutner.
Thank you. Likewise, Professor.
Speaking of children and youth, do you know that Michael has put together something called Gaia Warriors? And he actually He wrote a book, and he's got a beautiful. It could be animated, it could be filmed, and he's created that. And he actually gave me a character in there, and which is kind of fascinating. And I can't wait to show that to my son and let him read about me. He's seen me in all kinds of media and stuff, and publications and TV and radio interviews and things like that. But to be in a book that would be for him with those kinds of characters to stimulate the youth. We had a version of that, in a sense, way back in the 90s when we were doing the Young Eco Inventors contest. I always believed that the future was the kids and getting them to be on the same path that we already know is all better than what was the prior path. And we were doing this Young Eco Inventors contest and had major corporations and Apple and Virgin and Home Depot and everybody was sponsoring us for awards. And we had, at that time, they had Captain Planet, that was a character on television, and he was really a character, you know, one of those three-dimensional superheroes in his costume. He would come for us, and we had actor Alan Alda Jr. that helped me give out the awards, and that attracted a lot of media. But the most important thing is that we are getting the kids involved, and that spread to this XYZ whatever generation where they care about all this. Even if the ones that are investing are saying, we want to see what your company is doing with making money. What are you doing? What is your impact? What are you doing about sustainability or human issues, you know, our civilization? And what are you doing about crime and poverty? It's kind of cool to watch that happen. And our youth programs for a long time, and continue to be now, are very connected to getting them to understand careers in the planet, the green economy, and what that means. And we're attracting interns and volunteers from all over the world. Almost every country has wanted to be a part of what we're doing, and I'm really heartened by that. And without forgetting the indigenous and native people of the planet that are really connected to the earth itself, like the Native American Indians and all these islands in the Pacific. And you sensed that yourself. You said, when you visited the island, there was a female side of that. You know, that's what the volcanoes and the gods that they have believed in that created everything, they're female. And there's a wonderful, wonderful softness about the environment and how the planet thrives and the sustainability and the life cycle of planet Earth, spaceship Earth, you know, and we're all connected. And that's the problem, is that most people disconnect from this. And we want to show how we're all connected in this and how we can solve it. It's all about solving it now. And we have to get on with it. They're worried about a whole part of the ice flow in Antarctica that's as big as Florida dropping off. They're really worried, and that would be a 2-foot rise in seawater oceans around the whole planet, which will flood a lot of coastal areas in these islands that are volcanic in the Pacific and around the world. That breaking off of that piece of Antarctica that they're very concerned about, with all the rapid melting that's happening in glaciers and stuff, that would be such a dramatic change, even before this stuff of climate warming really takes effect. It's already doing that. But if you have something the size of Florida that breaks off and raises the water 2 feet, I mean, those are dramatic, and people are going to be rushing to find remedies for that, or they will lose their beaches and agriculture and clean water, and you know, it's pretty dramatic. That's why solutions are very important. That's why the Stock Summit is so important, to bring all these people together from around the world and listen to people and hear and interact with them and share solutions and then act on them. My activism has always been, it's great to know all this and be smart and have the technology and wisdom and people helping and creating and inventing things. But if you don't act on it, what good does it do? You know, so that's what we're trying to do, is propel in that strategic alliance that Michael has mentioned about Regeneration Global, this new kind of picture, putting it all together to focus on 3 major aspects that'll be talked about at the Stock Summit. One is prevention and resilience. One is build back green, about what happens when you have a disaster. How do you do this and come back in a better way than you were before, in a regenerative way? And the last one is, when you think about the problems of this planet, economic, environmental, everything, social, Why don't we have a program? And that's what our transition to the sustainability, the inclusive green economy is all about. Locally grown green economies that take advantage of all indigenous resources and wisdom and our new knowledge of technology, and make solutions that build that resilience and help the whole planet as a whole. And that's part of what I'm excited about with the Earthstock Summit and what we're trying to launch now.
That is exciting. I love that. I hear you say solutions a lot. And Michael, are you also saying solutions as SUL solutions too?
So yeah, he's a part about that more than I am. He's about that more than I am in many ways.
Well, you just took us to the next level with that, because part of the big thing has always been about sustainability. How do we sustain? How do we work more harmoniously with the natural world? And many of the people have been talking about sustainability. Well, even Professor Trotner for over 50 years. And if we go back to before that, the indigenous people. But I think part of it is, we can sustain, but because of things are collapsing. I actually just met with an Impact Hub group yesterday, and a woman, Angela, has been working in the Antarctic for 15 years. And because of the ice core samples, she has a lot of information of what's going on with climate. But, again, some people want to say climate change is fake. It's fake news. Again, a lot of that is perpetuated by, follow the money, who's benefiting from the petroleum industry and all these other types of industries. But, a big part of it is that through the research, they're like, yeah, glacial ice is melting, sea levels are rising. And whether you believe it's human created, we also know it's a natural cycle that happens with the planet. Every 26,000 years, we have a massive shifting, but every 52,000 years, it's extreme. And what we know is that humans are contributing to that and accelerating that at a pace that could potentially be, it already is. We can see these massive hurricanes, tornadoes, wildfires, and things that are happening. But what's interesting is, a lot of times people look at the environment as something outside of themselves. So with, the idea of regenerative full spectrum thinking and solutions, we also have to take in, human beings and the arts, the cultural and the spiritual aspect. I tend to believe, and I've worked with many different, I'm an interfaith minister. I went to a 2.5-year seminary in Manhattan. Because to work with the human beings, I needed to understand them from their perspective, not from my perception. And in that, I found a great commonality and unity between people, regardless of religions or what names they use. But I also found that unless people are, let's say, more that feminine aspect that you talked about at the opening of the show, they're more compassionate, they're more maternal, they're more intuitive, and not so what we tend to view as the toxic shadow masculine energy, which is more controlling, more patriarchal, more hyper capitalist, more hyper extractive and wanting control. Unless we go to that more feminine, ecological, harmonious way of being, we're making some huge continued accelerated damage to humanity and to the planet. And it's funny, when you think about this, I tend to see one of my teachers, Baba Ramdas, said the greatest institution of social change happens right here in the heart, because if people don't care, if they're not empathetic to others, if they only think about themselves, if they're narcissistic and just want more and more and more and don't care about people and put profit over people, if they don't have a heart and they're not what I would say more spiritually awake or compassionate, how are they supposed to care about the environment? How are they supposed to really want to do anything? And although I will say there's a lot of hugely successful companies out there that are doing major positive work and it is profitable, for me, it comes back to you have to kind of have the heart for it. And you also have to be able to be willing to look at living differently or doing things differently than we've done them before. So, it requires some inner introspection. And of course, a lot of that kind of either voluntarily or not, people had to reorganize and reevaluate their priorities during the pandemic. And unless we're able to really do that and reprioritize our life, like, hey, what's more important? Me driving a big Hummer and making millions of dollars and, having a private jet and destroying the planet and not caring about people. And it's all about my stocks and the bottom line. Or is it more important to think about, what kind of world will we have in 7 generations from now with that type of thinking? I mean, look at people like Greta Thunberg, who's going around the world as a youth activist saying, like, she's calling out, big companies and people that are really destroying the planet for her and for her future. So again, this is something, that's why
Did anyone hear me? The whole thing went away.
Yeah, we hear you. And just to wrap up.
Michael, Rose Allen.
Yep.
Rose Angel.
Hi. Yes, we hear you, Professor. It's
Wow.
just that the image is, the connection all of a sudden is like moving slow.
It totally went away for me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. The whole thing went away. It went back to a commercial for StreamYard.
That's so weird.
And then
That's so
I
weird.
They got to
rejoined you.
their plug-in too.
I don't see Michael at all.
Well, we're here. The last thing I just want
Well,
to
you were talking about connections, and there you go, technology. There's a great example, folks. We apologize. It was not us doing that. It was high technology and telecommunications and videos. Sorry about that.
Well, and that brings up a good point, because what I was going to finish with, and again, we are the regeneration generation, whether you're a baby boomer, a millennial, a Generation Z, Generation Xer, Generation Glow now is the now they have babies, the youth who are always looking at phones and their faces are already always lit up because they're just glued to that addiction of technology, which overstimulates our dopamines. It's literally becomes like an addiction, but we're calling out the regeneration generation of all of us have to come together right now. And I'm not saying this as some like doom or gloom, but just look around at the reality of even looking at things like the opioid crisis and the deterioration of communities and depression, all of these things. So I'm bringing this up because you said solutions, SOUL, and solutions, because there is always a human element to this work and also the ecological element. And this is really where this alliance with Professor Tratner and Green to Gold and this new emerging, which we haven't spoke about a lot. We're keeping it kind of a secret, but this whole emerging midwifing of this strategic alliance called Regeneration Global is we're calling regenerators, solutionaries, artivists, and even people like myself, apocalyptimists, together to actually make change and to live a quality of life and to have the life we know we deserve and to put people and planet before profit.
That's music to my ears and my soul.
Those of us that were at Earth Day, the founding of it, and that was such a wonderful thing to do for this planet and what it's done for us and our awareness. I always thought it was personal responsibility, and then community, family, and then community responsibility. And then this whole thing about nations, forget all that. This is a single planet Earth, life-sustaining for all of us, all the species. And so it started, like you said, from the heart and the personal responsibility, taking that personal responsibility and extending that out and letting people interact. And that's part of the spirituality aspect that the Earthstock Summit is revealing and concentrating on, in addition to the things that I do, our technology and methodologies and these kinds of solutions to solve the problems. I will tell you, this is an incredible opportunity for change to happen, and we need it. I'm not doom, as Michael mentioned. I will tell you that there is a thing that tracks the world's conditions called I just had the name of it, World Watch Institute, Lester Thoreau. And they said that humanity's already exceeding the abilities of this planet to support itself. What we're doing to it and the population and what we're causing things to go extinct, plants and animals and everything else, is that we're already exceeding the capability, and we have to regenerate that and stop exploiting and extracting it to the max. And the way that happens is that there's got to be kind of an eco-capitalism that happens in the green economy. That's why I always believed in it from 1970 and Earth Day on, is that would be the biggest change, because you can incorporate all this into, this whole beautiful dynamic and do it locally first. Let it happen there in regions and good green jobs and solving the issues of food and giving hope to people. A lot of hopelessness comes from the screwed up biases of the economies around the world. And the ones that are developing see that. And the ones that made the mistakes are trying to catch up. And the ones that are becoming brand new into this kind of a green economy and caring about this, they have an advantage over even the vested interests of the major economies of the world, the industrialized economies, because they can start from scratch in a way and do it right now and build back and build a future that's green and sustainable and make sense. Whereas we got to fix up the pollution and the mess that we're doing and poisoning the planet and the water and the air and the soil and everything else, And the worst one of all, sorry for bringing this up, is the fact that we make war on our species and all the other species of this planet. And we've got to crack that problem soon, because having warfare is so destructive to humanity and life and everything in spirituality and why we're here in the universe. But it's even more so if you take a look at what's even happening in Ukraine right now, how much those weapons are polluting the atmospheres and the destruction of all that material and everything else. It's got to end. Nobody would expect that we would, in this part of the century, still be making warfare. Yet we're on to the T. We could blow human. It's seldom often necessary to kill a person more than once. Yet we can kill everybody on this planet 1,000 times over. And so there's something wrong with the way we're running our own world and our own societies. And I think what we're doing at Earthstock Summit in bringing together all the sides, that beautiful wheel he was mentioning, I want to spin that wheel. I don't want to do, some game show. I want all those to click and every one of them to come into play and power that wheel up in a regenerative and clean tech way. But it is important to understand we have challenges that are unbelievable in this world right now. Human challenges, the society challenges, the technology, the economy, and what we're doing, how often could you say to yourself, look, I breathe and eat and need water and have waste and everything else going on to survive, and yet we're polluting all that. It doesn't make sense. Why would you, if everybody's suicidal maybe, but that isn't the case. Everybody has a drive to live and thrive. And I believe this is a change time that has to happen. And it's funny, next year is the 55th anniversary of Earth Day. And we're planning some pretty significant global events around that. And a lot of entertainers and artists and musicians and everybody you can possibly think of and technologists are coming together to really power that up. It's about action and taking action and making a difference in a celebratory way. We're not dismal. We're positive. We're solutionaries. We're energized by renewable energy and our own regeneration in our spirit and our cells, and we can make a world of difference. And the more people like Roselle and you reach out with media to your audiences and they hear what we're talking about, this is a flow of energy. I'm giving energy, Michael is, you're giving energy, and your listeners are hearing that, and they're going to hopefully capture that energy and get active and be involved. Support a nonprofit that's local, support green initiatives, support candidates even in elections and everything. Do something to make a difference where you live and in your home and in your local economy, and that will help. You don't have to think big. You don't have to have the solution that is, the golden, deal that happens for the whole world instantly. It ain't going to happen that way. People have tried. Worse than that, people have tried to conquer the world and be the owners of the world and try to run the world. And that hasn't worked either, as you know. So it's a collaborative thing. It really is a harmonious, responsible, collaborative effort of action. That's what I'm calling for, and that's what we stand for in the Earthstock Summit and our coming together with our strategic alliance of Regeneration Global. Am I carrying on too much?
Well, no. I'm listening to you, Professor. The only thing I can think about is we have to continue this open line, and I hope that is something that might be of interest to you and Michael, because I recognize so much of what you're saying is in dire need. In the city, a lot of people are walking around feeling hopeless, feeling like, for example, that when you see the results of like rapid gentrification that has its ups and downs according to who's telling the story. But what's undeniable is the impact in the community, the small mom and pops, the little traditions that get broken. No longer are we going to get some bread after church that we would then go and share as part of the breakfast after church breakfast meal, you know, and those little customs get in the way to in the present moment. I have to tell you, my heart breaks because I walk in this neighborhood, for example, that I live in Brooklyn, and I see people with displaced faces, and there is really no like community spot. Where are they going to go? To the YMCA? Like, that's really the closest, or some sort of maybe recreational center. But then, and I've been, you know, I know we said we're going to stay away from politics, and I definitely agree, but I've been in places where we've had like participatory kind of budget conversations with local communities and elected officials, and even that discussion point, let's open more recreation centers. And I'm like, what about holistic stuff? I understand basketball is important and handball, but what about like a room where someone can just sit and be and hear their thoughts? Just that alone. Or a place that's soundproof that somebody could walk in there and was like, I'm going to book 10 minutes and scream my butt out. Just because, you know?
I think they have a few places like those where people go and scream and smash TVs and do things just to, you know, it's I used to work with an organization, and this is interesting because our last communication, I could tell I know a little bit about what you do in your community and the bodega, and you shared a little bit about your family and your optimism and trying to bring holistic ideas. And, you know, sometimes it's hard because, you know, pioneering new ground isn't always, you know, popular or always received well. But, you know, as you know, a lot of us just have to do what we can do to have quality of life, but also, you know, share that with others. And, you know, as I said that, the sun just came through the rain clouds right here. So,
you have
a portal
right now. You're glowing even more so than we are, you know. That's cool.
My special effects team is working double time.
That's right. Overtime.
Well, I want to acknowledge you for the work that you're doing, because, you know, even though I'm in the Rockies and I've chosen a certain lifestyle, or Alan's in Lahaina, and, you know, I work with many people around the world. You know, no matter where we are, we have to bring it. We have to bring positivity. We have to bring a holistic perspective. And it's a very, and kudos to you. I mean, my daughter is actually a physician's assistant. She worked all through the pandemic in a birthing ward at a hospital in Brooklyn. And, you know, part of me, like, you know, the father's like, get out of there. What are you doing? Like, oh my God, my daughter, the COVID, like the hospitals. And then she's like, Dad, chill out. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. So, you know, it's not always for any of us to understand who other people are and why they live the lives and do what they do the way they do it. But what's most important is that we bring a holistic perspective and some positivity. And And, it can sound a little bit like, magic fairy dust just saying this, but the truth is we have to really embody, some compassion, principles of compassion. Some of the people I'm working with, and I want to bring it to the ground level through Earthstock. So many people do amazing work, engineers, architects, natural builders, people who work with renewable green technology, people who do personal development, people who work with regenerative agriculture. If we look back to the victory gardens back in the day. I mean, even when I grew up, everyone had a garden. You grew a few tomatoes, you made some pasta with your grandparents, or you grew whatever. But it's so much of this tradition and our connection to the earth has really been severed and in a way kind of commodified and co-opted. But the point is, a lot of the people I'm working with, I mean, brother Jerry Anderson, he's stewarding a 10,000 acre property in Puerto Rico right now, and doing a collaboration with the indigenous community there. I'm also working, recently I met Chief Black Spotted Horse, who's up in the Dakotas, and he's working on getting some of their traditional land back to do a sustainable regenerative village, like keeping some of the spiritual tradition and knowledge, but also realizing, like, we have to learn to grow our food and do things differently. But a lot of the people we're working with, whether it's in Colombia or in Costa Rica or in Mexico or wherever it is, in a park in Manhattan, I used to work with a group there. They actually had a teepee in the park and used to do a community garden, and brought a lot of positivity, because it really is about solutions. And, I can't say what's going to work for you, or Alan can't say what's going to work for me. We have to find what does work. But the most important thing, and this is what I want to kind of accentuate right now in the few minutes we have left, meeting Alan and meeting other people like yourself, whether they work with media or whatever they do, we saw a lot of gaps in the system during the pandemic, like the food supply, water security. I mean, in California, the water security broke down because there was so much microplastics and plastics and even rubber gloves, plastic gloves being thrown out, that it completely decimated the state's water system. So, but the point is, we have to find, regenerative solutions, and we have to bring it down to the ground level of, healthy food, good water, and in our own family, having as much compassion and understanding, and I call it kind of old school values, bringing back some of those values. It's not like, you walk into the house and everyone's watching their cell phone. You go to a restaurant now and everyone's on a cell phone. Everything has been so divided. We have to find some way to come back to this unity, to that community, to the interconnection, and sharing the information. And that's what, again, I'm going to share a little glimpse of what's being midwifed right now through this strategic alliance of Regeneration Global. We now have Regeneration World, a quarterly magazine headed up by Nina, who's an incredible editor, where we're going to put out information. And actually, we have places to submit articles for people in the regenerative area. And we also have RMTV, Regenerative Media TV. And we don't want to just be a media platform. We're actually looking at curriculums. And there's this whole thing through Regeneration Global, where we literally have contacts with hundreds of individuals and organizations, that are doing things. Even like, if your water is polluted, there's things you can do. Biochar, mycelial remediation. We're not expecting that everyone can live where, even Professor Trotner living in Lahaina, Hawaii, a tropical paradise, and then the fire comes and it's devastated. So, this is not like we can escape this issue anymore. We really have to roll our sleeves up and come to the table and do something. We have to be part of the change. Now is the time. We're the ones, roll up your sleeves and do something, whatever it is. Do something and avoid the haters. That's super important too.
Yeah, and be a green consumer. The choices you make. I remember back in the beginning of Earth Day and the movement, the media used to categorize the greens would be anybody that would buy any product was concerned that it be a non-toxic, a harm-free product and all that. Then there was the browns, that price was important, but they still wanted to buy something good for the planet. And then there were rights and didn't give a damn except for price. That was all that was. So you have to become this conscientious, responsible, sustainable, green consumer of food and products, and recycle things, and knowing the life cycle of what's happening to the product. Look at all of this electronics that are being thrown away, and billions of toxic batteries that are being thrown away. It's just truly, he's one of the victims there, right there. He's part of that. Michael, right? Anyway, it is true that we have to have a green society, green economy, with people making green decisions, sustainable, regenerative decisions. And it's so powerful, the pocketbook. It speaks so much of what we consume in this kind of economic system that we have, of buying things and consuming things. But we're going to go to, what they call zero waste and the circularity economy and all. That's all part of the green economy. But even just in what you buy every day and how you spend your money makes a big difference. If you support green enterprises and green technologies and green inventors and entrepreneurs and green nonprofits, you're making a difference. You're helping to energize these solutions. And so even right down to buying the right kind of gum that you chew. You'd be surprised about what junk is in common gum. We're doing a harm-free emporium we're going to launch, which is about do no harm. The physicians and medical industry's credo: do no harm to humans, animals, plants, and the planet. That should be the choices that we make in what we buy as consumers, because that drives so much energy and circulation and impact on people that are making bad products. Will go away or change. We want them to transition. We do believe in transition. That's been my whole bitch all along, is that you don't have to get rid of the fossil fuel companies. What they should do is move into being the renewable energy companies, and use that expertise and the money that they've raised. And, the only evil people out in the world are truly evil people, mentally and otherwise. Otherwise, I think it's been a whole problem about economic growth, the industrialized revolution, and that we've made a lot of mistakes in the rush to make a lot of capital and a lot of profits. And we can change that. That's why the green economy is so critical. And why I decided a long time ago with Earth Day, that's my mission. We got to build local green economies that end up with a global. We could have a utopic world, really, for all the species on the planet, in harmony, no more war, everybody living in sustainable and regenerative ways. And it would be so much better to start right from the heart, as we talked about, in personal responsibility. Do it locally. Do it locally. It will make a difference. It will spread.
What a powerful message. Thank you so much for your time, Professor.
Green preacher here or something. Thank you very much for having us, Rose
Thank
Allen.
you. I would love to visit Lahaina, and I really hold Lahaina in my heart. Seeing the videos, I'm sure, did not do any justice to what the natives and people who live there experienced. I feel like there's so much about Lahaina that is yet to be told, but what was very clear from even being all the way here in Brooklyn is that the corporate greed didn't handle and didn't manage and didn't seem to support in the way, if we're contemplating like a green economy, right? And I get it. Look, I get tired of being in environments where people just want to point fingers without and point fingers in the way of like, those people did it, we want their money, give it to us. And like, what are you gonna do with it? Like, are you going to put forth an empowering solution that's gonna benefit, or are you just wanting to just take, reap, and benefit without contributing? And none of those solutions work for anyone, because one is taking and the other one may be accepting, but what is being reciprocated, right? Like, we live in this world of exchanges, right? Like, I can give you a hug and you could choose to receive it or not, right? But there's an exchange there. You can hug me back, and then you've reciprocated that hug to me if it's something that was welcomed. And when people do that, then they create this beautiful like heart space. I feel that just multiplies, and you can feel it when it's done with authenticity and genuineness. And that's the problem that I have here on all sides of the spectrum when they fall into extremities, is that we do have a problem. And unfortunately, politics has weaponized the problem that we have. And some people talk about it and laugh about it like if there's no problems to solve, and other people are literally so anxious that they don't sleep at night. And I've met some of these people, adults and young people, who are in extremely anxious bodies. That's not, to me, regenerative in any way. To me, it feels like we're all living depleted, programmed, depleted ways of thinking. And I, like you, I want to get out of that little wheel and be and co-create with people like yourself that are doing this, not just talking, but the activating people, bringing people together, working from a place of respect, compassion, and inviting people. There's a place for you here. You don't have to agree with every single part of the wheel, but there's a place for you here. And you're needed, and we need you.
You know, I think, Michael,
those are some powerful words. I just want to emphasize inclusivity, participation, authenticity, and energy equity. And that's something, you know, we live in this, and when you think about extraction, the extractive culture, we think about oil and how much money can I extract and profit over people, but also equity is even the simple things like exchanging a smile. Or I will say, we might find in the very near in the future, we have to barter our skill sets and have a reciprocity. Like, you know, maybe you have some skill set to offer as a carpenter, and I have a great garden full of, you know, organic tomatoes and cucumbers. So again, it really brings it. There was something much more naive and simpler decades ago. And of course, I call it progressive de-evolution. But in that, we have people like Professor Trattner who are bringing these solutions and technologies and innovations to us. And I want to say to you, Rose, that we are doing this together. You opening up the door to have us here and the work that you're doing in community. You know, we are all doing it, and no one, you know, there's no chiefs anymore. There's no people that have to be kings. There's no one that should be higher, because when we get in the hierarchy, in that pyramid kind of perspective, there are the, you know, the CEOs that are making the, you know, hundreds and hundreds of millions, and then the people working and, you know, harvesting record profits, and then the people who are working for, you know, slave wages, who are part of the cogs of the wheel to basically, you know, feed the upper aspect of the, you know, so this, it really gets into what I call whole system design. Like, you know, Alan talking about circular economics, all of these things have to come into play. And there's ways that we can start doing this in our own neighborhood, in our own home and community. It doesn't have to be, like Alan said, we don't have to try to change the whole world overnight. You know, we've been working on this for a long time. And even since the whole baby boomer generation, the anti-war movement, the Woodstock generation, the human rights, civil rights, the back to the land movement, the introduction of organic food, you know, the American Indian movement started to make a spiritual resurgence. Art, music, culture was just exploding with new innovative ideas. And you know, it's been 60 years since that. So, you know, this is a long game, but because of the acceleration of, you know, the climate and collapsing and that's, you know, economically, socially, politically, environmentally, we do have to kind of like raise the bar and pick up something that we have to do. Even if people just do one thing and make a contribution, then, you know, if everybody did one thing, all 8 billion people did one regenerative thing, one positive, compassionate thing, the whole human condition and the planet would elevate literally overnight.
And I want to thank Rose Angel, because I think she gave us another word for our logo, and that's called reciprocation. That might be one of those key words that many think about. And I think I bless her for giving us that suggestion. It is important that you give back and you receive, and part of that is how we interact with everybody on the planet. Thank you all for having me on this program, and I appreciate this experience and this opportunity. And I hope your listeners will contact us and want to be part of our Stock Summit and attend it or watch it visually and learn from it and then become activists in your local community, in your family, in your heart. So thank you all. And as we say here in Hawaii, mahalo, which is a beautiful way like aloha to say thank you and farewell.
Okay, and just before, I know we have to go here in a minute. I just want to thank Andrew Kane for helping he's kind of been the publicist for the event. He set us up with a dozen interviews, and there are more coming. I want to thank you, Rose, for this opportunity. I also want to thank, the 15 people that have stepped up and volunteered hundreds of hours to help make the Earthstock Summit a reality. People like Shannon MacArthur, Luciana Calibri, Lisa Ayers, Cara Stonehouse, Rick Keel, our Grandmother's Council, our Wisdom Keepers Council. It takes a village. So authenticity, reciprocity, innovation, co-creation, collaboration, innovation, resilience, regeneration, self-sustainability, sovereignty, and the solutions are there. We just have to, and this is a service you're providing. We can't just sit in the brainwashing of the corporate media narrative. We have to hear the human stories, and we have to come back to that kind of old school values, but doing it in a way that's new and innovative because we're dealing with different issues. So I just want to thank Professor Troutner and absolutely thank you, Rose, for this time with you and just for keeping it real and human and letting us to excessively babble and try to get as much out as we could because, all of us are passionate about what we're doing. So, thank you so much. And to all your listeners.
Well, the pleasure is all mine. And I want to take a moment to also thank Andrew. He's definitely a brother that I just, he's all heart. He really is all heart. And I told him that he was an awesome producer because he was making it easy for me to facilitate this because, all the pieces are moving so fast for everyone. And yet I didn't realize that when we rescheduled that this landed on the Lionsgate portal. So, because it is 8/8. What is it? It's officially 8/8/8. So what a moment for me to always remember. Thank you, gentlemen. You have an open invitation to Cafecito Break, and I look forward to more conversations. And I would love to have a conversation with maybe some grandmothers and maybe tell some stories and learn more about like the expansion of consciousness and learn more how we can maybe figure out little ways that we can learn how to regenerate little things from where we're at. I know people are hungry for these little communal things, and some people think that, you're a romantic thinker because you just want to do these kumbaya things. And I'm like, no, I see what's happening. I'm reading the tea leaves. I'm looking at the news. It's the old stuff is dying and something new and beautiful is coming up to replace it. And we're part of that. And so thank you again, gentlemen. Many blessings to you and your path. Everyone, visit earthstocksummit.com and be a part of this beautiful event that is being shepherded by so many beautiful humans. Thank you, gentlemen.
It's a global movement. It's just an event. This is really a planetary awakening.
Remember that simple. Peace to you all. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Blessings.
Blessings.
Big love to all my Earthstock team and all of you out there.
Thank
And I'll
you,
see. I'm
everyone.
going to come visit you in Brooklyn. Where my daughter's still in New York, so I'm going to be there in a few months. So I'll come.
Oh, I look forward to that. Thank you.
All
All right,
right.
everybody. This has been Ra from Brooklyn with Michael, who is in Colorado, and with Professor Allen, who is in Lahaina. Today has been a very special treat. I hope that the family can feel into the beautiful resonance that has been created here. I definitely feel it. I have chills in my body. I really do bask in this conversation that has been so full, filled, and also authentic. I can feel that it's
Uh-oh.
beautiful. And it
Lionsgate, we just birthed another word, soulfulutions. So I just want to say this, I work with a lot of indigenous people and ceremonial people, and we can talk. And I just want to say before we go, if we could just invite everyone, let's just have a moment of silence, because what you're saying and what you're feeling, we're all communicating with words, but we're communicating on another level, whether it's through energy or consciousness, or even through the mycelial network of the planet. But maybe just one moment before we finish. And I want to invite you, Rose. I know you're a spiritual being and one woman, and if you would do a little closing for us, we'd be honored.
okay, thank you. My message for everyone on this beautiful 888 portal is to remember your magnificence, to remember that every breath is an opportunity to begin again, and we can begin again and create again, and we can take those steps together in harmony and in oneness with compassion, love, and grace. Thank you. Aho, Ashe, Uweba.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
everyone. God bless
Good
you.
evening.
Blessing.
Good evening.
Good evening. This has been Ra. Thank you for joining us by the fire this evening. God bless you. Please make sure you subscribe, and we'll see you soon.